Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Jackson Blevins and Spencer Newmister with their talks titled Production Over Potential and The Shoulders I Stand On. Jackson Blevins, class of 2020, is an economics major from Plainfield, Indiana, and a brother of Beta Theta Pi. Jackson was a member of the 2018 basketball team that won the 2018 NCAC baseball, I apologize, that won the 2018 NCAC tournament championship, reached the NCAA regional finals, and broke the school record for wins in a season with 32. Jackson founded Core Insurance Solutions, an independent insurance agency, in November of 2023. Jackson lives with his girlfriend Madison in downtown Indianapolis. Spencer is a 2019 graduate from Seymour, Indiana. He was a religion major and art history minor. During his time here, he became the self-proclaimed greatest scout team football player on this side of the Mississippi, as a 10-time Scout Player of the Week, and even convinced the coaches to let him play QB for a few weeks, causing the DB coach to lose confidence in himself. Off the field, he served as IMA president, vice president of Sons of Wabash, leading 2 days of giving amongst the students, senior council chairman, student senate rep, dressed up as Olmi for Halloween, served as the MC for the Giant Steps Capital campaign announcement, and is forever Blix's favorite student, even if he doesn't know it. He now lives with his fiancée, Marianne, and their beloved pup, Bernie, in South Broad Ripple, and works as a recruiter for healthcare IT consultants. Let's give a warm welcome to Jackson and Spencer.
Good morning, Wabash. Thank you to the Sphinx Club for the invite and for bringing campus together every week. Appreciate that. Thank you to Hugh Vanderveer, Susan and Jim Dyer for the continued support over the last year or so. Thanks to Emily Vetney for coming by my office and getting to know me a little bit as I wrote this speech up. Thank you to Coach Jake Martin for baseball, by the way, not basketball, baseball. For being a mentor, a collaborator. Just watched Coach Martin get married, and that was a special moment for sure. I'd like to thank my parents, family, my dad's over there too, appreciate you, Dad, and friends who have guided me through life thus far. I'd like to thank all the professors and faculty who I interacted with in my time. I saw Dr. Saha there, and I see Dr. Petter now. Appreciate you guys, all the conversations that I had while I was here. You all set the expectation at Wabash, and those expectations had me striving to be better and produce. Bob Grand, class of 78, recently gave a talk titled Lessons in Gratitude from an Old Wabash Guy, and in some way I thought about titling my talk almost the exact opposite. Similar age to people here on campus, so nonetheless, I'm going to go into my story a little bit and then into my talk titled Production Over Potential. My goal for you guys today is to identify where you might be able to produce more and ultimately go and do it. I would describe my path through higher education as a strange one. I visited one college before my senior year of high school, and that was St. Joseph's College. After accepting a scholarship and committing to play baseball there, I thought I would never look for colleges again. Fast forward to the start of 2017, in the middle of my freshman year, it was announced that St. Joseph's College was closing and I would need to find a new school. Also a quick plug there, if you care enough about the college, give back in any way you can. I watched the college close and it was very depressing. I visited Wabash twice, and I knew there was something unique about this place and that I ultimately wanted to be a part of it. I had limited connections to any current or former student, but you could feel that quiet expectation of greatness, and that definitely stuck with me. I would define my time at Wabash with some of these phrases: pledging Beta Theta Pi, trying to play catch up with course credits. Shout out to Dean Welch there, who's my advisor, transfer advisor. Winning lots of baseball games and a championship in 2018, experiencing the loss of a fraternity brother, great laughs with teammates and brothers, the disappearance of sheepskin diplomas, a pandemic, a degree received in the mail, and ultimately a place I could call home after a short 2.5, 3 years. After Wabash, I moved to Florida for graduate school and more baseball, then returned to Indiana and took my first job at a logistics company. It's interesting when you get removed from being on campus and find yourself in casual conversations with people. If Wabash comes up in conversation, it's often followed by one of the three phrases. All male? Heard that one. What a great school. Or so you're smart. All of those phrases seem like they have no appropriate response, so if anyone finds a humble and appropriate response to any of those phrases, let me know. Back to the good school part. It's a comforting yet weird feeling hearing from others outside the Wabash community that the school has a quality reputation. I'm not sure whether this reputation and what others think of Wabash College truly matters, but I can agree that this reputation didn't form out of thin air. So how does Wabash's reputation come to life? This reputation or idea is subjective and often hard to quantify. We've got our quantifiable rankings of alumni network, internship programs, and winning sports teams. We've got alumni being leaders, founding companies, building families, and hopefully moving the world forward. Here on campus, it's the daily work of the faculty, students, alumni, and friends of the college that are foundational to Wabash's productivity. These traits can definitely be one explanation for Wabash's reputation. This brings me to my talk titled Production Over Potential. First-year Indiana Hoosier football coach Curt Cignetti noted this idea was critical when forming his team's roster. In times of constant transferring of players, Coach Sig had his mind on one thing: individuals that can make an impact through production. I thought if I ever gave a chapel talk, I would avoid calling up Merriam-Webster, but here I am. Production is defined in this context as total output, especially of a commodity or an industry. Let's ignore the back half of this definition and focus on the total output piece. When we produce as a verb, we cause to have existence or to happen. Let's summarize production as bringing output into existence. Let's also look at potential. Potential as a noun is defined as something that can develop. So what is the difference between production and potential that Coach Cignetti is referencing? Production comes alive in many different forms and ultimately no longer lives in the land of what-ifs. Production is this bringing output into existence, and potential never quite makes it to the surface. Production can be objective, like winning or losing a game. Production can be subjective, like how you make someone feel on a rainy day. Production can involve yourself, your family, your job, your peers, or interacting with other humans. Output does not have to be a new and shiny thing. Fill in the blank here on wherever you might like to produce in your life. In today's world, it's easy to get caught up in ideas on a chalkboard, a quote of the day, or a viral social media post. Modern technology can lead to extreme consumption and limited action in the world outside of screens. I'm guilty of watching one David Goggins Instagram post and then figuring out how I'm going to tackle every single life goal I have in 2 hours and ending up with zero production. I'm here on Founders Day, and it's hard to grasp what our founders were thinking as they founded a college around 1832. Ultimately, a few leaders took thought into action and used production to build a foundation for what Wabash is today. I think founding is a form of producing, and we've founded many things. We've recently founded sports teams like lacrosse and volleyball, created a few majors, computer science, PPE. We just built a football stadium, and we're building a new community center. Ultimately, I think what makes the Wabash brand strong is members of the Wabash community produce. We build upon our foundation through production, and we move forward through action. Potential is something that can possibly exist, but might not ever be brought into existence. Potential hides back in waiting with the chance to blossom, but it might not ever. I believe the Wabash community doesn't bask in potentials, the what-ifs. Ultimately, we produce. The purpose of my talk is to push the Wabash community forward and away from the I mights or I should-haves. I believe staying away from the I mights or I should-haves will have all members of the Wabash community continuing to push anyone and anything related to the college forward. Staying away from potential and producing in whatever way that inspires you can ultimately lead to a better world. Excuse me. At a certain point, talk becomes cheap. I'm definitely guilty of this, and there's an amount of action that is required to create production. This leads me to a phrase that's always stuck in the back of my mind: numbers never lie. There's a lot of noise in this world, but I think it's important to reflect and ask yourself, what are my numbers? What are my team's numbers? Am I reaching goals I set for myself? Perhaps your vibe is down and your goal is to put more positive energy into your significant other, your friends, your family, or the world in general. Perhaps you haven't wrote that book that you said you'd write. Maybe you've been at something for 6 months and 6 months in a row, and you might need to ask yourself, do I need a break from this? There's going to be many times in your life when you have to look yourself in the mirror and understand your current levels of production. I've learned a lot of lessons by asking these questions to myself recently. More than a year ago, I left my first corporate job and started a company from scratch. The idea got me fired up. In the first few months, I wasn't producing anything. I was a company with potential and no production. Not a good feeling. Felt great to start a business and have the ability to control every single detail that I wanted. However, this land of potential became scary really quick. The excitement went away as things got tougher and I had to bring real output into existence. When you lay your head to rest at night as a business owner, there's no market or bad force to blame. I think the same for students and faculty that are here. You all have the resources to produce, and excuses will keep you in the land of potential. I don't have a magic formula to keep you in the land of production and away from potential. I believe that targeted and consistent action on a daily basis will form the foundation of your life, your business, or whatever avenue you'd like to produce in. Production doesn't have to be fancy, complex, or groundbreaking. Produce in whatever way you can and work to avoid potential. The world doesn't benefit from potential, it benefits from production. I just spent the last few minutes throwing out large philosophical tidbits, so let's lighten up a little bit. I want to leave you with a few practical tips that I think can keep you in the land of production. Number one, do what makes you happy. If you're unhappy in your personal life, it's difficult to bring most forms of output into existence. In order to do what makes you happy, you've got to have at least a basic understanding of what you desire in this world, so I encourage everyone here to continue to reflect on what that might be. Number two, create your own luck. As I look back on our 2018 championship baseball team, it's hilarious because we can cite very high levels of production, but we definitely had some luck on our side. I don't think that was by mistake. Everyone showed up, exuded great vibes, and understood their role within the team. I think you can create some luck if you show up with a smile and keep pushing forward. Number three, take risks. A reminder that potential is something that can develop. Crossing the bridge from potential to production is what the world needs. Risks can be scary, but with a plan, great things can happen. Number four, be present. There's plenty of distractions in today's world. There's plenty of goals to plan for. There's plenty of life and vacations to plan for. It's hard to beat someone who plants their 2 feet in the ground and lives in the moment. Number five, listen. After saying about 1,800 words, I'm talking to myself a little bit, but listen to others' words and listen to the signs that you receive from the world. As we approach our bicentennial celebration, the college and its community will need to keep overcoming challenges and evolving. What would happen if this college fell out of the land of production and into the land of potential? How about we keep producing and we'll never find out? Wabash always fights and always means always.
Thank you, Jackson, for giving me something I can't beat. All right. Good morning, Wabash. First, thank you to the Sphinx Club for the invitation to speak today. This is a bucket list item, and hopefully I do the opportunity justice. I would have accepted the invitation regardless, but I am especially proud to have the chance to speak on Founders Day. 192 years ago, the first group of trustees knelt in the snow to dedicate the land on which the academy that would become Wabash College was built. In preparation for today, I spent quite a bit of time reading through the About page on the website, old stories that have been posted by various faculty and staff, and perhaps most importantly, the Dear Old Wabash blog page, which Beth Swift did such an amazing job with. Please, next time you see her, buy her a coffee, because she spent years doing exhaustive work to curate the stories here and keep the memory of our beloved college alive. One of those stories from 2009 was all about the legendary names that made up the first group, such as Edmund Hovey and Caleb Mills. Beth wrote about their immeasurable contributions to our school, the state of Indiana, and beyond. She finished the article with her belief that the founders would recognize the virtues they founded our school on in each of our modern-day students. I see a nodder. But I kept thinking of all the things they couldn't have imagined about 2024 when they knelt down in the snow that day. And no, I don't mean the exquisite taste of a Rhine burger. I thought about all the things they couldn't have imagined in 1832. Matches were invented that very year. Decades later, in 1859, Charles Dickens wrote A Tale of Two Cities, which is my personal favorite book. And my personal favorite fun fact was that if you divide 192, you land back in 1928, the year sliced bread was first sold. I'll leave it to you to decide if this is the greatest chapel talk since then. Once I finished chuckling to myself about that, I started thinking about all the things associated with Wabash that they couldn't have imagined. Initially, I considered some of the great and unexpected achievements by its graduates and faculty. For instance, Dr. Raymond Williams, for whom Williams Hall is named, wrote the book on the Swaminarayan Hindus. He dedicated himself so fully to understanding them that the book now serves as the official explanation of their beliefs. Clay Robbins Jr., class of '79, is the chairman and CEO of Lilly Endowment, Inc., which just last year gave out over $1.5 billion in grants. If that doesn't scream generous, then how about once giving me an hour and a half of his time just because I asked? Neither of those tickle your fancy? James Burt Gardner was the head of our chemistry department from 1901 to 1914 and invented the gas mask that would be used by our troops throughout World War I. Thomas Marshall, class of 1873, was the 28th Vice President of the United States, and Pete Metzelar's class of 1982 went to 4 straight Super Bowls with the Bills, but most importantly won a D3 basketball championship for our beloved institution. When we talk about standing on the shoulders of giants, these are the kinds of figures who typically come to mind. These are the people that we mean when we sing "Forevermore as in days of yore, their deeds be noble and grand." Thinking about Pete's accomplishments in football, of course, then brought something else to mind that the founders couldn't have imagined, which is the bell game. Now, I don't bring up the bell to be cruel, because I know how some of you must be hurting after this past weekend, and I am too. I was devastated, just as I was in 2016 when I watched them ring our bell on our field, ending a 7-year streak, denying us a new record, and robbing us of a conference championship. I know that last piece in particular sounds familiar, but more importantly to both the 2016 loss and the one from this past Saturday, neither team ever stopped playing. To those of you in the room, let me say that I and the rest of the alumni offer our congratulations on your regular season. Best of luck on finishing up this Saturday, and a genuine thank you for demonstrating the Wabash Always Fights mentality so well, because that matters. You see, that phrase means something. When I hear it and when I say it, there's a passion and a pride that rise in my chest for the strength that this institution cultivates and inspires. Thinking about 2016 again, I mentioned that I was devastated by the loss, but that was far from the worst loss this campus took that fall. As a brief aside, my wonderful fiance and I were at Half Liter Barbecue a week ago for the Bash Before the Bell event. The audience received a lovely rundown of the Don's career as a businessman, coach, and cultivator of Wabash men since ascending to head coach that same year in 2016. However, they neglected to mention his first defining moment. Coach Morrell took over the position at the very end of March of 2016. He oversaw spring practices and training camp, but really didn't have a ton of time to cement himself as the guy to steer the ship going forward. Yet, on September 10th, just one game into his first season, Austin Wyrick, a former member of the team, a dear friend to all that knew him, chose to take his own life overnight. The next morning, Coach stood before a room full of young men, some sobbing, others just learning the news. He didn't tell us to buck up or hold back tears or be better men. Instead, he urged us to seek counsel if we needed, reminded us it wasn't our fault, and encouraged us to love our brothers better from that day forward. I don't know if he knows this, but I was meant to be there with Austin that night. I don't have a good excuse. I hadn't arrived yet because I put it off to have a drink and charge my phone. I've never felt such guilt before or since, thinking that I might have been able to stop him, and I've never completely gotten over that. However, Don's message that day made a real difference in my eventual healing. So I want to extend a personal thanks for that message and for helping the team pick ourselves back up and get to work. You are some little giant and a pair of shoulders I'm proud to stand on. 2 years later to the day, another friend of mine, Evan Hansen, made the same tragic choice. Once again, the Don was one of the many here who stepped up and fought for Wabash. However, by that time, I had chosen to pursue other interests and didn't play my senior year. So this time, there were other giants who gave me their shoulder. Former Dean of Students Michael Raiders called a President's Council meeting for about half an hour after I heard the news. Spent the entire conversation sobbing inconsolably. Couldn't help it. Dean Raiders didn't ask me to leave or get it together. He went about discussing the news and what we would do to honor Evan's memory on campus and beyond. And once it was over, he pulled me in, hugged me tight, and let himself shed a tear while telling me that we would get through it together because Wabash always fights. You see, it's not just a saying to him or the people who graduate from this place, but a creed for how to move forward in a world that pulls no punches. He is some little giant and another set of shoulders I'm proud to stand on. There are other giant shoulders that come to mind. Those of Dean Jansen, who, while busting her ass to provide greater opportunity for every student here by architecting the largest capital campaign in school history, was meeting with me to help spruce my resume and set up meetings with contacts in the nonprofit space. I think of my friend Hugh Vandeveer, who might just love the student body more than anyone else here, and I can now always count on to be a friendly ear. Sam Stewart, who I graduated with, has started his own company, helped my fiance find new career direction, and will be our officiant next August. How blessed are we to be bolstered by the giants of the past and to dwell amongst them all the days of our own lives. Returning to what Beth Swift said about modern-day students, I believe what she touched on is the strength of character and gratitude embodied by that phrase. Why does Wabash always fight? My answer stems from this quote proudly displayed on that Wabash College About page from Byron K. Tippett, a student here when sliced bread hit the scene and the 9th president of our college's history. He said, "The poetry in the life of a college like Wabash is to be found in its history. It is to be found in the fact that once on this familiar campus and once in these well-known halls, students and teachers, as real as ourselves, worked and studied, argued and laughed and worshiped together, but are now gone, one generation vanishing after another, as surely as we shall shortly be gone. But if you listen, you can hear their songs and their cheers. As you look, you can see the torch which they handed down to us. Wabash always fights because so many giants have fought for us. We are grateful for the beauty of this brotherhood and the shoulders on which we have stood these last 192 years, as well as those who we shall never know, that will stand upon our shoulders long after we are gone, wishing them love and wellness as we go. I hope that each of you will take time today to reflect on the giants both from yesteryear and those that currently walk thy classic halls, dedicating themselves to your futures as some little giants. Thank you.
A few final announcements. Tomorrow, basketball will take on Franklin College at 7 p.m. This weekend, swim and dive will compete in the Gail Pedworth Invitational. Lastly, stick around after the conclusion of chapel for the reintroduction of Alma Mater Sing. Now will you all please rise and join me in singing Old Wabash. Da 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 da.